Hey guys, it's Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a card with the Lawn Fawn Color My World stamp set. This is going to be part one of a three-part series. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. The other two should be up within the week. Also, you'll want to stay tuned for part number 3. There'll be information in part 3 about a giveaway that I'm going to be having of one of the products that I featured in the last couple of videos. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. So for now, let's just get right into this. Okay, so the first thing I did was I took the Lawn Fawn's Color My World stamp set, and I stamped out some crayons onto some plain white 80-pound cardstock that I had, and I'm going to color them in with some Copic markers. Now you'll see I have a lighter color and a darker color for each crayon, and the reason I did that is because when you buy a crayon, a regular crayon, I don't know, I've always noticed it, the paper is always darker than the actual wax. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to color each of these in, and I'm going to speed this up here a little bit. So for my colors, for the red crayon, I used R39 for the wrapper and R37 for the wax. For the green crayon, I used YG17 and YG13 for the wax. The blue, I used B05 for the paper and B02 for the wax, and for the yellow I used YR23 for the paper, and I used Y02 for the wax itself. So I'm just coloring in the rest of these, and then from there I'm going to have them cut out. And stamp set, I didn't buy the dies for it because it is a very basic, straightforward design. It's not overly complicated. There's no really hard to reach nooks and crannies. So I just bought it plain, the stamp set, no die. After cutting them out a few times, I kind of think I'm going to go and buy the die. However, I mean, it's only a few dollars. It's just the one crayon die for the set. Now, the other thing I'm not going to show in this video is originally when I first started filming this, I did the crayons in watercolor and also the background in watercolor, which you'll see coming up after. I put it together and I was not a fan of how it turned out at all. I fail horribly at watercoloring. Even with my new watercolors, I had a very hard time with it. So I held out the Copic markers and I'm going to just do it like that. So I'm going to speed up also the fussy cutting here because it's sorry about that. It was just my little one sneezing over on her play mat there. So like I said, I'm going to speed up the fussy cutting. There's not very much of this frame left, but I've sped it up about as quickly as I could, and I'll come back in just a second. Okay, so now I've got them all cut out, and I'm going to use my dynamic steel dies from My Favorite Things. It's the In and Out Stitch Rounded Square Stack, and I'm just going to try here and see what frame works best that they can all fit into, and I'm going to die cut that out of a piece of 4.5 by 5.5 by 4.25 cardstock, 80-pound white. It's just the Staples brand cardstock that I have because that's what's accessible to me locally. So that's what I'm using here. My little one wants to be in the video too. She's having her own little voiceover back there. So the next thing I did, I traced the inside of the die cut onto the back piece of cardstock, which you'll see I suck at using a pencil. I can't go in the lines ever. So I lightened those up, and I also lightened up the lines that were on the actual cardstock. So now I'm going to take the same colors that I used for the waxes of the crayons, and I'm going to use those to color in my background. So I'll just speed this part up a little bit. And you'll see here, it's just a very basic background, just to go basically straight up from where the crayons are. There's not going to be a big color difference or creative background. It's going to be very simple and straightforward. There, so now that the background is done, it's time to put everything together. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay a strip of my adhesive right underneath the bottom of the die cut, and so that I can put the crayons on to the back and have them peeking out the front. Now I know there's probably a more effective way to do this, but this is the only way I could think to get them decently centered, and you'll see in the end it's not that decently centered. So I put the two middle ones on first and then the side one on, and then when I put the green one on, that's when I realized it wasn't centered, but that's okay. I'm not going to peel them off and put them back on, because in the end it looked okay. I was happy with it. So the next thing I'm going to do is cover the entire back of the frame piece with my adhesive. Now I'm not going to do the top part of the crayons. They're still going to be able to move. So I'm just putting adhesive all around the edges, trying to get it as adhered as possible and make sure it's not going to come back off, because this adhesive is not exactly the best adhesive. However, once again, it's the best that I could find locally, and it does stick very well to my fingers and not very much to some other things. So I'm just going to adhere that on. And now whenever I adhere fronts to cardstocks, I always do it on the edges. So it doesn't matter if it's a side fold card, I'll do it line it up from the side. Top fold card, I'll line it up from the top, which probably does look a little funny, but that's okay. So now we're going to put on the sentiment, and I'm just going to use the sentiment that came with the stamp set, the You Color My World. It's going to be a very simple card, so we're going to keep the front of it very simple. I'm stamping it in Hero Hues black dye ink, and I'm just going to stamp it right in the center once I get it inked up very well. I don't know if it's my block that I have, or maybe I'm just horrible with stamping, but I find it takes a lot to get a solid image or a solid coat of ink on my stamps, especially my clear stamps. So if you've got any tips or tricks on that for me, let me know down below. So now I'm also going to take, there's this itty bitty little smiley face that comes with this stamp set, and I'm going to be stamping it on the white part of each crayon, which is why I left them white. I'm not being very meticulous about placement on this. I'm just kind of putting them on for the sake of having little smiley faces on some crayons. So that pretty much finishes up the card for today. If you have any comments or suggestions or tips or tricks, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for part 3 for the giveaway and how to enter. So thanks for watching. Bye.